All
We're
right.
recording now.
So, hi everyone. Okay, let me just get rid of this message here. So, I'm Jess Park, and I am here in Napa, California, and the weather is finally getting better, and I'm just so excited to teach this class. I know with everything going on, I've really missed being able to interact with people and paint together, and so I'm just really excited to be here tonight. So I hope all of you guys are as well. Today we are going to be painting some house plants, and you can see behind me I've got all the house plants because I love plants. So we're going to be drawing, we're going to be painting. If you look down at the bottom in the chat function, if you haven't found that yet, if you have any questions during the class, just let me know or let any of our moderators know just by typing in, and we'll be sure to answer all your questions. We're gonna have a lot of fun. So I'm gonna go ahead and switch to my dot cam now, and give me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm just going to go over the supplies we'll be using today. And the first is the Canson XL watercolor paper. And so I have it spiral bound today, and I also have a pad, but you're welcome to use either of those or both. So it's the 140-pound watercolor paper. And then I've also have watercolor brushes here, and I have the Princeton Aqua Elite brushes. I'll be using a round 6 as well as a round 10, and we'll go over brush care and all of that. And we already have a question. If you don't have a waterproof pen, can I pen over my pencil drawing after I apply the water? We'll go over all of that today. Just use what you have, and if you have a pencil, that's great. As long as you're participating and having fun with it, don't worry if you don't have the specific colors or the specific pen. I'm also going to be using the Daler Rowney Aquafine watercolor inks. And you will also need, and we're going to go over how to use this as well, but you'll also need a jar of water. And I like to have a big old jar, I like to have a big jar, and that's because I don't like getting up and washing out my jar every so often. So I just like to have a big one. I'm also going to have a 10 well palette here, and you can see I've already put some of the paint in, and it's well loved. You can see all the, the paint residue there. And so that's where I've put some of my paint, and in just a second I'm going to show you how to put that in. And then am I using a half pad or a full pad? So this is actually the 7x10. I'm not sure if that's what you were asking. Right now that's what I'm going to start with. And then eventually I will switch over to a larger pad, which is the, let me see, the 9x12. But I am going to start in the smaller pad here. And then last thing I want is a paper towel, and I'll show you how to use everything later. So first thing you want to do is get your paint out, and the Daler Rowney is a pigment-based watercolor, so you do want to give it a really good shake before you deposit it into your wells here. So I already shook mine, and I'm just going to squeeze, let's see, I'll bring the palette here so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to squeeze here, and you don't really need too much. A little goes a long way here, so I'm just going to squeeze, and you'll see that I don't fill my palette all the way, or I don't fill the well all the way up. You just need a few drops. And so if you're wondering what colors I'm using, I did list them on the site, but I can go over them really quickly. So let's see, I have the cadmium yellow hue, the quinacridone magenta, the portrait pink, leaf green, raw sienna, phthalo blue, burnt umber, and Chinese white. So those are the ones I have right now. Okay, so just kind of getting used to the paint and the paintbrush and all of that, we're kind of going to go over an introduction. So first thing you want to do is get your watercolor brush, and if it's brand new, what you want to do is just simply swish it into your jar, and what that's going to do is get rid of all of whatever was on the brush. They like to put a little bit of, I forget what it's called, but basically it helps the brush keep its shape. And so what that's going to do is when you swish it, it kind of gets rid of that, and you're left with a nice point. And just going over the brush care really quickly, when you're cleaning your brush or using the water at all, you're going to look at your brush and you don't ever want to go past the ferrule here. And so the reason is it's held together really nicely, but if you're constantly dunking it in the water or leaving it in the water, it can ruin the brush that, your nice brushes. So you don't want to do that. I'm using a round brush. It's one of the most versatile shapes. It gives you nice, really thin points and thick strokes as well. So first thing, like I said, wet your brush and just pick any color. What color am I using? I'm going to start with, let's start with the quinacridone magenta here. And so what we're doing right now is just getting used to the watercolor itself. And let's see if you can see what I'm doing. So you see my brush is pretty wet, and I'm not going to dip it all the way. I'm just going to barely grab a little bit by just tapping the side here. And that really is enough. Might you need a little more water to dilute it. The colors are so vibrant, you can just dilute it a little bit. And what we're just going to practice is having a nice point, and you can see the points that you can get and the thick strokes that you can get. And this is, there's a lot you can do with just a round brush. So we're just getting used to the brush, we're getting used to the paper. So it really doesn't matter what color we're using right now. Okay. And so let's talk a little bit about houseplants. There's different ways that you can, different styles you can do. You can draw first, you can paint first, and today I'm actually going to start by painting first. And what we're going to do while we're practicing using the colors and the paint is we're going to paint the pots first. So pick any color you want to start. I'm going to start with the yellow here. And what we're going to do is just paint some pots. You can think about any shape, something simple as like a shape here. And this brush holds so much water, I don't even need to re-dip at all. Okay. And so when you're getting these edges, you can definitely use the tip of your brush. So it's kind of like a little trapezoid shape there. And maybe I'll do a little round one next to it. So we're just painting the pots here, getting used to our brushes and seeing how much pressure we need to add. And you can even play around with the paint itself here if you want to try adding some water and do like a little wet on wet technique. Adding those drops will create different patterns within that. And you can already see that it's spreading and creating this nice pattern here. Let me see if I can. There we go. Okay. And do leave a little space at the top of your pot because we're going to be drawing over that. We're painting on the pad with the other paper underneath. So right now I'm just painting on the 7x10 pad here. We're kind of using it as practice. We're just practicing right now. I hope that answered your question. Okay, and then I am next going to use the phthalo blue. And again, you can see that if I were to take it just straight from the middle, it's just very vibrant, and that's fine if that's what you want. But I like to add a little water to it to dilute. And you can see like just a little bit goes such a long way. So maybe I'll do a squarish one next. And if you have any questions, of course, stop me. The other thing I want to mention is that the class is recorded, and it will be available on the Michael's YouTube channel. So if you miss anything or if you feel like I'm going too quickly, don't worry. We're just having some fun here because it will all be there for you to watch it and rewind and pause at your leisure. Okay. So we've got a, let's do a longer one. So let's try something longer here. And you can see I used quite a bit of water and really diluted that green. And when that dries, I'm going to actually come back to it. So I really do want it to be that light. And I'll come back to it in just a second. It's a great palette. Okay, so we did plain colors, we didn't mix anything, and next I want to show you how we would mix some colors. So for example, and you can use whatever you want. I mean, I know we've all kind of learned that yellow and red make orange and red and blue make purple and so on and so forth, but I'm actually going to tell you that to make a nice violet color, you actually need a pink and a blue, not a red and a blue. So we're going to just grab a little bit of the pink here, and I'm going to just mix that in the middle well, add some water to it. Okay, and then I'm going to grab the blue. And you can see it made just such a really nice violet color. And with that, I will make a nice tall base here. Okay. And so from here, you have a few options. We're done with, we are done with the paper here, or I'm sorry, we are done with the first ones up here, and they're pretty dry. So if you look, if you're not sure if something is dry and you really want to test it, you don't want to touch it the way that I did, but I was pretty confident it was dry. What you really want to do is tilt your paper, and you'll see that purple down there. We know it's still wet because it is shiny. So that's the first test. If it's shiny, then obviously we're not going to touch that. We're going to let it dry. If it is looking like it's matte and it's looking dry, the next test you can do is just kind of gently touch it, tap it, see if it's dry, and that feels pretty dry to me. So what I'm going to do next is show you how to add detail over that and draw the houseplants. I'm using the Daler Rowney Aquafine watercolor inks today. And we're going to start with this yellow one here. It's pretty dry, so I'm using the Micron, I'm using a waterproof pen, and what you can do is basically, you can, because they're waterproof, you can draw with them first and then paint over, or you could paint and then draw afterwards. But so we did it this way. And so I'm going to show you a few different styles. The first one I'm going to draw is just a cactus, and then we're going to do a very simple one here. And all I did was draw a little oval, and for this style, you really want to keep it a single line. So you don't want to do something where you start and then you stop and then you kind of do something like this. And that's fine. That is a nice, way to draw as well. And it creates more of like a realistic, I guess, detail type drawing if that's what you're going for. I'm using an 08. But what I want to go for is more of like a less realistic, less detailed, kind of more cartoony type drawing. So I've got my little half oval here, and then I'm going to add some lines just like this. Okay. And then from there, we're going to go ahead and add the little spikes, and you can add them however you want. One way you can do it is just adding, them everywhere. But I feel like it looks a little nicer if we make it kind of more in a pattern or a uniform way. So I'm going to add my spikes kind of equidistant. So along the edges, I put little V's, and they're paired. And then on the actual lines themselves, I put X's, but I start each line in the middle and then going out. So rather than doing an X like this, I like to do like a quick stroke there so that it thins out as it's going towards the edges. And I'm going to do that all the way on all of the lines here. And I do apologize if I missed some of your questions. We've got some moderators that are answering the questions as well. We've got Ashley answering a bunch of questions. And we'll just finish that. Okay, so that's one style. And then what I do is actually I'll add some details to the pot here. So maybe I'll make it, add a little bit of polka dots. And it just kind of adds a little whimsy, adds detail without making it look so detailed where it looks more realistic, because that's not really the vibe I'm going for here. Okay, and then the next pot I have here, I'm going to show you a different way that we can paint, that we can do this. I'm sorry, we're going to do a different cactus, is what I was trying to say very poorly. And the type of cactus we're going to do is kind of like the shape of a saguaro, which is a lot of, I saw a lot of those in Arizona when I was living there, except they're huge. So obviously that wouldn't be a house plant. Okay, so you have the main stem and then you've got a few coming off around the edges. And again, I'm just using single strokes here, trying to keep it, very loose is what I'm trying to do. And then on the main one, I'm just going to draw some lines. And then when you get here, you can kind of join them together. Okay. And then for this one, I think what I'm going to do is leave it. I don't think I'm going to add any spikes to it, but you are welcome to do that. And a different way to paint this would be, or to keep this is, so what I'm trying to show you is different styles. So this one, I would leave it as is. And I've done a whole, painting like this before where I just do the pots, but I draw the houseplants. But on this one, I want to show you how it would look if we were to paint it. So as for me, I don't like to paint within the lines. I'm not a color in the lines type of person. And I don't want this green. I want something a little darker. So what I'm going to do is mix the color. So I have a little bit of that green here, and I believe that's the leaf green that we were using. And I'm going to make that darker just by adding the tiniest amount of this burnt umber here. I believe that's what we're using. Yeah, burnt umber. So and you could see I barely dipped that in there, and already very dark. So I'm going to add a little bit more of the green. And funny story, before I let you guys all in here today, I accidentally dipped my hair in the burnt umber. So that happened. Okay, so go ahead and you can see that that's a completely different green from what we started here. And I'm just going to kind of just haphazardly paint my cactus. And I'm not really too concerned about coloring or coloring within the lines. So what I've done is left kind of white space on this right side, and that kind of sort of signifies or depicts that there's light coming in from that way. Okay, we're gonna have to move a little faster. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is on this side, I'm going to just paint it without drawing it this time, just so I can show you. So for this one, I think I'm going to just do, let's add a little more yellow to this. And I'm going to add actually a little bit of blue. And what I generally do while I'm painting is I look at the color and I see, do I need more of this? What do I want? And right now I want kind of a darker, deeper green. So I just took that kind of warmer green, I added blue to it, and it made it a cooler green. And so from here, we're going to do some snake plants. So we're just going to move up there, add a little more blue. Make it darker. Okay. And we're just moving up. Got some more here. And snake plants are generally not very smooth. They kind of have like a little bit of a wiggle to them. And you can stop there and come back to it to add more color. So I'll leave that. To this, remember I told you I wanted to leave it very light. I'm going to go back and layer. by adding a little bit more of a darker color and give it a little lip. And you see that it was such a simple thing that we did, but it added some character to that pot. Okay. We'll let that dry and then we'll move on. And in this one, we'll do something very simple. We're going to draw some leaves that come up this way. So we'll have them cross. And I'm just going to add leaves to here. So what are we doing right now? Right now, we're just practicing different types of plants and, you know, just having fun. And don't worry if it's overlapping. Maybe I'll make one come out this way. Okay. And then when this dries, we'll add another cactus to it. I think that might already be dry. Okay. So the type of cat, let's do one called angel wings. So what that looks like is almost starts with the same shape, and it's going to be kind of like this. And we're going to do a few. We've got a fire truck. I don't know if you guys could hear that. Sorry about that. We're here in Napa, so yeah, a lot of fires here lately. Okay, so we've got the little beginnings of our cactus, and then from there we're going to add more here. So you're like adding appendages, if that makes sense. And some are bigger, make some smaller. Because when you look at, you know, these plants, they don't necessarily all look exactly the same. In fact, they all look pretty different. And from here you have two choices. Sometimes what I like to do is I like to take the plant and add just polka dots like that, and that signifies a little spikes coming out. Or what you can do, and I think it's a little cuter, is you do little circles, a little smaller than that. So more like this. And that's what I'm going to be doing here. So I'll add little circles. And I like to space them pretty equally. And along the edges as well, I'll make them look like little bumps. And I'm drawing really quickly here because I want to move on to show you guys a few more things before we do our final project. And I would love to see how you guys are all doing. So if you have your videos or your cameras on, I'd love to see that in just a second here. Okay, I'll let you guys continue with that while I see how you're all doing. So go ahead and hold them up. Oh, I like that. Apiksha, I hope I said your name correctly. That looks great. Oh, wow, Carmen, that looks really nice. I love the notes that you added. Phyllis, that looks good. I see you shaking your head, but it looks great to me. I love it. Sandra, very nice. It's looking good. Wow, these are so fun. And I love that. Oh, there's so many more of you guys. Sabrina, that looks great. I like the little vase that you did. And Megan, the colors are so nice. And I like that cactus you did in the middle there. Oh, I'm having so much fun seeing everybody's work. I see Sylvia, who's actually my husband's cousin. I'm so happy you guys are all here. Okay, let's keep going. So moving back to this snake plant that we were doing, I stopped here because what I want to do is add something a little lighter now, and that gives it a little depth. So instead of just using the same color for every leaf, every branch, I'm going to take something that's a little lighter now and add some more stems. And they're just going to be in the back here. And I'll let that dry. And while that's drying, I'm going to paint this. So a lot of watercolor when I'm working is I work here, then I come back here. Because it takes so long to dry, you just have to be working on multiple things at once. So here, I'm just going to dab. And you are obviously very welcome to paint each individual leaf if that's what you'd like to do. But I like just kind of getting an overall, you know, kind of just an overall picture here. And I think to the top of these cactus, some of them, I'm going to add a little flower. So you can do that just by doing like 3 little bumps like that. And then you can go in and paint it all. So I'm going to actually mix a new color here with more yellow than green. And just kind of haphazardly fill that in. And you can see like I'll mix up my greens. So, and I think it looks nice. It gives it more depth. And that little flower wasn't quite dry yet, but that's okay. All right. The next thing I want to show you guys is, okay, let's do something fun. It took me so long to, I don't know if you guys can, I'll show you later, but behind me, I've got this little baby fiddle leaf fig, and I have wanted it for so long, and I found it, and I was so happy. So we're gonna be drawing that today. Basically, what I'm gonna start out with is the little basket. And I don't know how to pronounce this. I believe it's Jute, but it's one of those like weaved baskets. I don't know if it's like jute or jut, I don't know. Anyway, so it's a little basket, give it some handles. And what I'm gonna do is take some wavy lines. I don't know if you guys can see, maybe I need to zoom in a little more. Okay. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to do some wavy lines across. But when I want to signify something that's 3D, you really have to think about the shape of it. So if you think about something 3D, it's not going to be straight across like that. It's actually going to be more like curved and following the curve of the basket. So we know that it has those curves. So if you couldn't see that, sorry, was that not centered? So this, yes. This, no. Okay. So I'm just going to be doing some little wavy lines just like this, just to kind of show that it's a little bit of a basket. I need to put my lines closer together. And you can see it's following a little bit of a curve. Okay, and I'm going to let that go. Next, I'm going to add the fiddle leaf for, I keep calling it a fern, a fig. So it needs a long stem. I'm just going to thicken it a bit. And the stem, if you've ever seen, it's not perfectly smooth and straight. It's got some bumps to it. Always a little thicker to the bottom. And we're going to make those violin-shaped leaves. So they look kind of like a pear or a violin. We'll put one like that. And then I'll have a branch coming out this way. And I'll have a leaf coming out of that end. Okay, and we're going to add the details to that in a second. And when you look at a leaf, they're not always facing you. Sometimes they're not. So this is going to be more like that. Okay. Whereas these ones, I want the line to go down the middle. Maybe we'll have an oddly shaped one here because like I said, they're not always facing us. And I'll put one, I'll make this go a little higher. I'll put one in the back. Give it like that. So it's kind of behind that stem. And then I'll have a cluster up here. Down here. And after having one of these fiddle leaf figs, I realized that the leaves are always bigger on the top, and then the ones on the bottom are a little smaller. You would think it's the other way, but no. And then I'll have one maybe here. Okay, so there we go. All right. And let's paint that basket in. So we want that nice baskety color. I'm going to use my raw sienna. And it's kind of a, oops, didn't mean to dip there. Okay, Let's see if you guys can see that. Okay. It's kind of a yellowy color, so if I bring it over here, it's quite yellow. So what I'm going to do is actually mix it with my umber. So I'll take the sienna, just a little bit of it, add a tiny bit of that umber. Remember it really takes over. So just the tiniest amount. And I'm just going to paint that in. And what I'm also going to do is, are you guys able to see that? Sorry, can I zoom out very little? Yes. There, sorry about that. Okay. What I'm also going to do is, it's very light. I want to show that there's some depth to it. So I'm going to add just a wet on wet. While it's still wet, I'm going to drop in just a tiny bit of color. And all I'm doing is just dabbing. And then that shows down here, it's a little darker. The sun is coming from the right. And the leaves here are pretty dark, so I'm going to use that same dark green I used earlier and just paint that in. Now, if you're using pencil, that's fine. You can do the same thing. You can always, if you're not comfortable with painting first, the way that we did here, you can always draw first and then paint it later. That's completely fine. Okay, I'm going to go back to, let me zoom out in case people are still looking at that. Okay. I'm going to be working up here now. Back to my snake plant, it's dry. And I'm going to outline it, but I'm not outlining it exactly. So you can see I'm still leaving that white space because I really am not one of those color within the lines, do everything precisely type of person. And it's totally fine if you are. Okay. And I'm not going to outline all of them. I'll leave the ones in the back kind of unoutlined. And what I'm going to do is along these each of the snake plant's leaves, I'm going to kind of just do these little hashes. I don't know if you've ever seen a snake plant leaf up close, but they've got, let me zoom in a little because I know that's very tiny. Okay. They've got kind of these stripes to them. And I'm going to signify that just by going across each one. Let me know if I'm too zoomed in now. And you can see, you can start out with something that looks like a blob, add the details, and then suddenly it's cute and it's not blobby anymore. And I'm going to actually do the same with my pot here. I'm going to add some design to that. And maybe just add, you can add whatever you want, but I'm going to do something like that. Okay, and I'm too zoomed, sorry. Okay, yep. Oh, you know why? I didn't focus it after I zoomed it, sorry. Okay, and the last thing I want to talk about before we start our next thing is, right now what we did was we kind of drew everything, like flat. So we drew our pots like this. We kind of did, very flat looking. If you want something to look a little more 3D, you can add some curve to it. So for example, instead of just flat edges, you can add a little curve. But let me tell you this, one big mistake I always see that people make is they'll curve the top and then ignore the bottom. So whatever you do, you have to add the curve to both. So whether it's, like this, or you decide you want a curve at the top, please don't forget the bottom as well. You want these to kind of signify 3D shapes where the top curve matches the bottom curve. I hope that makes sense. Yes, I can show the snake plant. So let me zoom out here. And that goes for any shape. So if we're looking at this one here, if you wanted a circular planter, you want the top and the bottom also curved. I hope that makes sense. Okay. Let's do one more cute little plant, and that's a hanging plant. And the way we're going to do that is we're going to start with a ring on the top because it's hanging. Let me zoom in and I will autofocus that so you can see what I'm doing, because this one's going to be tiny, tiny details. Okay. And from there, you're going to imagine that there are kind of strings coming out this way, holding the plant. Okay. And then I want my pot here, so I'm going to give it a nice round shape. Okay, and what we're going to do is a string of pearls. I believe that's what the plant is called. They're just little circles, okay? And so it's little circles that come down as a string. And if you want to, if you're having trouble imagining where the string is or the line is, you can, you know, do it with a pencil first, but they're kind of different sizes. So some of them are bigger, some are smaller, and they're just going to come down like this. And you can always add in that little string if you want to. But they're so nice, and I hear that they're very easy to take care of. But I think I might have enough plants at my house. I always want to add more.
Hey, Jess.
Yes?
We just have a question here about what's the benefit in terms of using the watercolor inks
Mm-hmm.
versus traditional watercolors?
So the great thing about inks is that they're pre-mixed, okay? So let's say you're working on a project and this is a specific color you want to use. It doesn't matter, you know, you can come back to, you can leave your project, you could come back and you can use that same color because no matter what, it's going to be the same. Whereas with the tube, oftentimes what you'll see is when you dilute it, it can look completely different. And so it's harder to come back to a project that you've started. The other thing that I like about, you know, so the tubes also, you would have to squeeze them out and you have to leave them overnight to allow them to dry. And so whereas with the watercolor inks, you can kind of just use right away. So it is a real, I would say it's a matter of preference. Yeah, I would say it's more of a matter of preference. And regarding why I chose the ink for this is because these are the colors that I really wanted to use. And so I'll show you why I chose these specific colors too in a little bit when we work on our project. Okay, so I started my string of pearls. I didn't quite finish it, but basically you would just add the little circles, make it look like distinct lines. If you put them too close together, it'll just look like a jumble of circles that isn't a string. And you can always add the little lines in here. And what I'm going to do next is I'm just going to dab. And maybe add another color in here. Okay. Let's see how we're doing. I see some of us are still painting. Some of you guys have the cutest backgrounds. I see someone with Estella has a cat ears. Very cute. I love it. Oh, very nice. Okay. Before we move on to our project, ooh, very nice. Yashini, that looks great. I want to show you something really cute. Okay, the last little pot. I have so many pots and things I want to show you. It's hard to choose which ones to show you. So I'm going to show you this little kitty pot that I like to do. So it's just a little U shape. And then it's going to have ears. And since it's a pot, I'll give it a little curve. And then from there, you can draw whatever plant you like. I'm gonna do, let's see, maybe I'll do leaves shaped like this. And let's do that. And then I'll just give it a little face. And a nose. There's our cat pot. Okay. So for the project, I am going to use larger paper. And while I talk about that, I'm just going to be adding some details here. So to my pots here, maybe I'll add, maybe I'll give this one a stand. So to draw a stand, you can give it some legs. I always start off with the legs. So I'll put one on this side, and then I'll put one maybe here. Another one over here. And then this one, you can see it's a little shorter than the others because it's supposed to be in the back. And then maybe one back here. And this one should be at the same length as the one on the right in the back, if that makes sense. And we're gonna go across here. Give it a square stand. But if you wanted it round, you can do that too. I'll show you really quickly over here. So you would do that. You can put one here. I'm gonna put one in the middle that's a little longer. And we're gonna go round here and straight across. And then you can either paint that in or you can color it in. But I'm just doing this really quickly just to show you. And in this case, this line and this line should be the same. And this one should be lower and lower because it's closer to you. I hope that makes sense. Okay. So for the project, you want to kind of, what we're doing is we're just making a, let's see if I could zoom out here. We're making a page of plants. So you want to choose, you know, maybe 4 plants, or if you want to do like a full page of them, that's fine too. So you just choose some that you want to do, and you want to kind of plan it out before you do it. So for me, I'm going to do a larger page. And so I want to do 4, so I want to divide my paper by 4. If you're going to frame it, then you have to think about what frame size you want. This is a 9x12, so, and I'm fine with that because I like floating frames, but if you wanted an 8x10, you would have to draw it out and mark off where you need to cut it off so you can do like a mat and whatnot. But I'm going to leave mine a 9x12, and what I did was just gently, like, I divided my paper into 4, and so that's what you would do. Okay, and then the next thing you want to think about is what colors you want to use. What is something you want to display in your home? Because sometimes, you know, you paint something and it doesn't go with your home decor. So for me, I like very earthy neutral tones, and so these are all just with using what we have today. And so you get a piece of paper and you pick out the colors you want. And so I am going to make some of the colors here. By the way, to wipe out your pan, you can just dip that paper towel that you have and just wipe it up. So you have some more space to mix colors. You can run it under the sink, it's up to you, but I think it's a time saver if we just do it this way. Okay. So I want to create these colors here. So the first one is that umber, and I believe I just did that straight out of the bottle. So I'm just going to use this next page to test my colors, and I'm happy with that, so I'm going to leave that as is. The next thing I want is this pink color, and so what I'm using is the portrait pink, but you'll see if I paint it out, it's not pink, okay? It's, I mean, it's not the pink that I want. I want it a little more pink. This is, portrait pink is actually that second color I used. Okay, so I've got the burnt umber in this one, I've got the portrait pink on the next one, and then I want to make this kind of earthy pink tone. And actually the way I made that was, all I did was I took the portrait pink, and believe it or not, I added that quinacridone magenta, that very, very pink color we saw, but I just added the slightest amount of it. And I think I need a little more. And that might be too much. So the great thing is you can just add, if you feel like you're mixing and you didn't quite get the color you want, just add water to dilute it and then add more. Okay. And is there a way I can share the pages in an attachment? So actually I'm on Instagram. I don't know if you guys are, but if you need to find me, I'm on Instagram, and I don't know if you could see that. So I did post, if you go on Instagram, you'll see I have the full page of all of these plants here. And then I also have this full page there as well. Okay. What's the purpose of using a swatch? So the reason I'm doing this is because, like I said, if you want specific colors, then you test them out and see how you like them. So that is not quite as pink as I like. So I'll go back. Oops, I wasn't paying attention, but no problem, just add more. And so I know sometimes people will be painting and doing art and they get very stressed by it, but it's all kind of just, you know, it's all good. You just make a mistake and then you go with it. So I think I'm happy with that. So those are the 3 colors I'm using. So now I know when I paint, I'll be using this well here, which is the portrait pink straight out of the bottle, the burnt umber straight out of the bottle, and then a mixture of the quinacridone as well as the portrait pink to make this one. Okay, and so that is why I swatch. Okay, and then the other thing is, if you start a project and you want to come back to it, but you forget, you know, what colors did I use, what did I mix, then you can always write it down and put it next to your swatch so that you remember for later. So under here, I'll write burnt umber. Here I can write portrait pink, and then I'll put portrait pink plus quinacridone. So I know for next time, because sometimes, especially I know we're all busy, you don't have time to finish everything in one sitting. Okay, so I'm just gently penciling this out. I'm sorry, am I muted? Someone's saying they can't hear me. I don't think I'm muted. Hopefully everybody else can hear me. Okay, so I'm just taking a regular pencil and I'm just going straight down the middle, and I'm going very, very lightly. I'm not going very dark, and I'm just eyeballing it. Now, if you really need to know if this is the middle and you're being very, you know, specific about it, you can definitely go in with a ruler and measure it and all of that, but I'm not going to do that. You can tell that when I'm painting, in other aspects of my life, I'm a perfectionist, but with art, it's kind of one of those things where it's relaxing. So, okay. The first one I want to do is check your bottom left screen. You may not have, no, I am not muted, so I'm not sure. Yes, okay. So here, I'm going to start with this one. So I'm just going to go in now. I'm switching over to my round 10 because I'm doing a bigger painting here. And so we're going to go in and make that rainbow. And I don't know if you guys have ever seen these rainbow vases. They have the cutest things now everywhere. But I love them and I want one, but that means that I would have to get another plant. And I might have enough plants now. Okay, so let's make that a little darker. Okay, so I'm going to start here. I know that I don't want the colors to bleed, so I'm going to leave that and I'm going to move on to my next one. There's no such thing as enough plants. I know, I would say, but I feel like I can't keep up with all of them, and I neglect some of them, and then I feel bad, and then, you know. Okay, the next one, I'm just going to do a very plain terracotta. I believe that's what it's called, the terracotta pot. And now I'm using the straight out of the bottle portrait pink for this. And I'm going to curve that edge just a little. Okay, let's paint that all the way in. And remember, at first it kind of, you know, can look like a blob. But eventually, when we add the details, it'll be nicer. Okay, and then I'll add like a little lip to that, because I know if you've ever seen these pots, they've got like a wider lip at the top. Okay. How did you get the terracotta? So that's just the portrait pink by itself. So, so that's that color. And this one was the portrait pink plus the quinacridone magenta. For the next pot, I'm going to make this speckled one here, and I'm just, we're running, I gotta go quicker. I'm going to do a diluted portrait pink, so I'm going to use a lot of water here. And I'm going to make it look kind of like, I want it to have an arch at the bottom. So I saw this pot somewhere, and I just thought it was so cute, so I had to paint it. I'm very diluted. And the way I did that was I just got a lot of water on my brush. Okay, it kind of looks like pants. That's what it should look like if you did it right. Or shorts, I should say. That's the shape of the pot. And I'll let that dry because I need to add details to that. And I need to go a little faster here. Next, the last one I'm going to do is this one right here. Okay, and if you're not comfortable with painting it first and you need to draw it out first, that's fine, but I'm going to actually just paint it. So I'll start with burnt umber, lots of water, because remember this color itself is very overpowering, and that's the great part of doing swatches is you get used to and familiar with your paint and the type of colors that you have, and so you can see I'm pretty familiar with, you know, which ones are overpowering, which ones I need more with, because I just play with them and I kind of figure it out. So that's the burnt umber. I think I want it a little darker, so I'll just take a tiny bit more. Okay, so I'll do two that are at the same height here. And then one that is lower. Okay. And then the next thing I'm going to do is do the next part of my rainbow. Going back to the portrait pink, be very careful that you're not touching. Need some more there. And so what I'm doing, in case we do run out of time, is basically I'm picking some of the plants that we did earlier, and I'm just kind of filling it in. I'm going to be filling the pots with those plants. And then you can decide whether you want to add the details on the pots or just to the plants, or not at all. You just want to do watercolor. That's completely up to you. Next, let's see, what is dry? Let's do a little pilea here. And I know I didn't teach you guys that yet, but I'm going to get the green, add a little blue to it so it's a little darker, and then to make it warmer, I'll add any of these earth tones. And you're just going to draw little circles, and some of them will be smaller, and then you can wet your brush more and make kind of different, you know, lighter tones here. You can pick up more paint and do darker. You can do kind of like a saucer shape. Maybe I'll add a little yellow. Because the thing is, sometimes my plants don't look all that great and they're not all the same color. I didn't get the bottom ones. Okay, sorry. It will all be recorded. So, I mean, it is being recorded, so don't worry if you didn't get it. And then from there, I'll have a long stem and just add the branches. And I think I had 3 pileas, and one of them already died, one of them is dying, and one of them is close to starting to die. So it's the plant that I can never keep alive. Okay, so now I have this shorts looking one that's almost dry. So I'm going to add the specks to it. And in case I lose you guys, because we know we have just a few minutes, you just take the tip of your brush and you add the burnt umber, the pink, and some of the Chinese white to make little specks here. And so that's what I'm going to be doing. And if it's not dry, please don't add the paint because it's not going to work. And it's a little damp, but I'm just going to go with it, even though I just told you guys not to do that. And I'm just tapping. I'm going to go in now with another color, which is the white. And the great part about these Daler Rowney paints is that they have, you know, a little bit of opacity to them, so you can layer them like this. And they're not completely transparent, which means that you can do things like this because they're so pigmented, which is great. I'll add some of that pink as well. And some of mine will be little, some will be big, and it's all about, you know, anytime you paint something, you want things to be a little more varied. Okay. And the last part of this pot is that burnt umber. Just fill it in, make sure it's dry. I do apologize that we're rushing here. It's just that I had so much I wanted to share with you, and I wanted to make our hour just filled with plants. Okay. So there's that. And now just check and see this is dry. So I'll add a little pothos, and I have a neon pothos here at home that I absolutely love. So what I'm going to do is get that leaf green. I'm going to use it straight out of the bottle without mixing anything, and I'm just adding in leaves here. And it gives it that, if you want to, you can add a little bit of yellow to it to give some variation. And maybe I'll add a leaf here. And they like to hang down, so I'm going to make some coming down here. And mine is starting to turn dark green. Oops, see, I didn't wait. I wasn't being careful. I am going to tell you that there is a way, if that ever happens to you, let me just take the time to tell you what you can do is you get a wet paintbrush and you just scrub it out. So dab as much as you can with a paper towel, and then get a clean wet paintbrush and just kind of keep dabbing and rubbing, and eventually it will come out. So if you ever make a mistake like that, don't throw away your paper and don't feel like, you know, you have to start all over or anything. This painting itself is actually the picture for when you signed up for the class. So if we, you know, we only have a minute here. So if we don't get to finish, which, you know, we won't, you can take a look there and see how it was painted. The other two, we already learned how to do, so I'll leave you guys to do that. Thank you so much. I'm so glad that you guys are, you know, able to join in. While that's drying, I'm gonna see how you guys are doing. So if you'd like to, you can hold up your painting so I can see. So this pot, by the way, is just gonna go straight and down like this and across. And then I'll add that burnt umber under it. And then each leaf I'm just going to trace over. But while you guys are, you know, I want to see what you did. And before I lose you guys, if you want to show me what you've done, just go on to, let me come back here. Let's do it like this. Okay. So I don't know if you guys can see it. It is #MakeItWithMichaels. Show me what you made. I would love to see it. You can find me on Instagram. And then let me also see what you guys are doing. So if you want to hold it up. Oh, beautiful. Jen, I love the polka dots. Lena, that looks so good. Oh, wow. Oh my goodness. And I love the pink that you did. Is that Hattie? Oh, wow. Jessica, great name. And I love I love the hanging one that you did. That looks good. Martha, thank you for joining in. That looks great. Denise. Oh, wow. Joanne, you drew a nice, beautiful tree. That looks so nice. And I love the happy faces, Estella. That's so cute. That makes me so happy. And let's see, Sabrina. Oh, wow, Lizette, that looks so good. I love the way you trace them like that. And Lois, wow, that looks really good. That looks almost realistic. That's really nice. And Sylvia. Hi, Dan. Hi, Sylvia. And Leah. Oh, good job, Evelyn. It looks so good. All right, thank you guys so much for joining in. I'm so happy I got to do this class. I have another one next week, and we are doing fall trees. So please sign up for that because I would love to see you. And thank you so much. Can I show the finished painting? I'm sorry, yes, I can definitely show it. Let me go back to where I was. So, that is here. Okay, did that go back to the finished painting? Yes, so let me put it down so you.
Yes, it did, Jess, it did go back.
Okay, all right. Thank you so much and have a good evening. Bye, everyone.